So I'll give some data which you may not have seen, supporting the use of intraoperative radiotherapy. Of importance, in September last year, after NICE had been deliberating, we sent them about 18 publications in the previous 18 months, which were new in addition to what had been published until 2014. 2015 really. So 2015 and 16 there were 18 publications. A lot was published. So we have already seen, you may have heard about this translational research from Aviano, where you can see Dr. Barbara Maletti, Gustavo Baldassare, and Dr. Masarut, where they found TARGIT has a beneficial effect on tumor microenvironment and that it abrogates the stimulatory effect of wound fluid on cancer cells. So if you do surgery and fluid collects in the wound, and if you take that fluid and put it on breast cancer cell lines, you find that this fluid stimulates proliferation, motility, and invasion compared with the patient's own plasma. But if this patient has received intraoperative radiation and you collect the fluid that collects in the wound after intraoperative radiation, this wound cancer stimulating effect of the wound fluid appears to be abrogated. So this suggests that the radiation does more than just kill cancer cells. It may have an effect which is not only goes in the area immediately adjacent to the applicator, may go beyond that area and even systemically. So these are the three main people who did this in Aviano, and they have done some extra work, and I cannot claim to be expert on this, but what they have found, and this is published in Oncogene, which is a Nature publication, that radiotherapy induced microRNA 223 prevents relapse of breast cancer by targeting the EGF pathway, suggesting a mechanism why giving the radiation during the lumpectomy procedure might be better than giving it a week or 4 weeks later. So as you saw, target accrual continued till 345 patients, and we published the results. And I said these results earlier today. I didn't know how much time was going to pass, but I wanted to emphasize this again, asking what is the chance of being alive without cancer coming back in the breast? And this local recurrence-free survival was similar with TARGIT and EBRT for the whole trial as well as pre-pathology, and the disease-free survival was also very similar. So this is a publication which is, if you see, it's an A4 size book about that thick, and it is part of the contract that we have as the grantee to write at the end of the grant application. So HTA funded the TARGIT A trial from 2009 to 2013, and then we had to write a report which included all things that we wanted to write in terms of the data. We could write more than what was already published. So we wrote the whole document and sent it to them, and after having worked on the Lancet manuscripts quite rigorously and getting the wording right, we used the manuscript as it is. Lancet agreed and gave us permission to do so explicitly, but they ran the plagiarism software, and they said that there's an overlap between this and a website in Romania which had actually published the Lancet paper on their website. So we had big negotiations to do, but they wouldn't budge. So we had a medical student write the introduction and the discussion completely again in different English. And that time it was in native English rather than my English, and it was my son writing it. So that's why he has his name on it. And then they accepted it. The data was the same. They were happy to have the same tables. One of the analysis that is included in this is the analysis of the first 800 patients in the pre-pathology stratum who have a median follow-up of 5 years. So everybody keeps saying our trial doesn't have median follow-up of 5 years. These are the first 800 patients in the randomized clinical trial. If we had stopped the trial there and we had analyzed only the first 800 patients, it's not that we're choosing those patients who have a median follow-up of 5 years. So this cohort, who have a median follow-up of 5 years, shows the results which are very similar to the main trial. This is not surprising because most recurrences occur during this period. So the local recurrence in the conserved breast in the pre-pathology, there were 9 events, and the difference between the two groups was not statistically significant. The p-value was 0.32. Breast cancer deaths, there were 29 events. There was no significant difference between the two groups. And again, non-breast cancer mortality was significantly less with targeted intraoperative radiotherapy compared with external beam radiotherapy with a p-value of 0.04. We also published the first 1,222 patients who had a median follow-up of 5 years without separating pre and post pathology. So these were the first 1,222 patients randomized in the TARGIT A trial. This number is not dissimilar from the only other IORT trial, the Elliott trial, who have 1,301 patients. So the number is not too different. And in that trial, this was published as a letter in the Lancet when we wrote in response to the Giacchestro trial. So here you can see the results of the So if you see the local recurrence in the TARGIT A trial for the first 1,222 patients was non-inferior to EBRT, and non-breast cancer mortality was less than EBRT. And in this meta-analysis, analyzing the two very different ways of giving partial breast radiation, we found that the results were consistent and that it was non-inferior in terms of local control and better in terms of non-breast cancer mortality. In the HTA report, we also have a publication on the subgroup analysis. This subgroup analysis was initially presented in San Antonio in 2012 and led to quite a lot of controversy. So this is the formal publication of this in the HTA journals. So we can see that we analyzed all factors that we may consider important. You can see on top in small letters is pre-pathology median follow-up less than 5 years and pre-pathology median follow-up more than 5 years. There was no difference between these two groups in terms of follow-up duration. No other factors other than the hormone status, ER and PR status, was significant in this analysis. Even the factors which are traditionally thought to be of importance were not, in fact, different between the two groups. We all think that younger age has a higher risk of local recurrence and grade 3 tumors have a higher risk of local recurrence, but that does not mean that TARGIT would be less effective in any of these groups compared to external beam radiotherapy. So what you see here is there were 263 patients who were younger than 50 years in the trial, and there are trials which are published with less than 263 patients. The first Polgar study had 242 patients. So in that randomized study, there were 3 recurrences in TARGIT, 3 recurrences in EBRT. The recurrence rates were 2.9% and 6.2%. Well, they would have said external beam radiotherapy has got double the recurrence rate, but anyway, the difference was not statistically significant. Grade 3 tumors, there were 436 cases, no difference in local recurrence rate between the two groups. So only ER and PR, and because ER was mostly 90% of cases were ER positive, the difference was most well seen in the PGR difference stratification. So in selected patients, this is the result which was presented in San Antonio. We find that TARGIT during lumpectomy achieves local control nearly identical with EBRT, and this is the very data to which we are treating patients today, patients who are ER positive and give radiotherapy during lumpectomy. So the difference is 0.18, no difference, the two lines are on top of each other in local recurrence, and mortality difference is 3%, although the p-value there is 0.08. That means the probability that we will see this difference when there is no difference is only 8%. So 92% probability that this is probably real. In the HTA publication, we also have included all the raw numbers. And as Professor Baum has said many times, in this particular trial, statistics may obfuscate what is really there. If you look at the raw numbers, the numbers are so few in terms of events or bad events, and they're so similar to each other, you don't even need statistics to tell us that yes, well, it's all right to use this treatment. So these are available and have been available to the people who make the policy. We analyzed it in 4 different ways, in addition to raw numbers, and in every way, the outcome was not different from what was published in the Lancet. We have data from Australia, where we published the data about cosmetic outcome, and this was led by Tammy Corica, and in September last year, they had it as an issue highlight. So that's Tammy, and what we found essentially is that in this longitudinal single-site target A substudy, intraoperative radiotherapy had similar cosmetic outcomes to EBRT, but better breast-related quality of life. And this was despite this analysis being limited to post-pathology stratum, which means there was a bit of a handicap in patients getting IORT when they had a second operation. I would like to highlight the paper and the work done by Nathan Coombs, along with medical students, in which he raised money and they got a machine in Swindon. Now, patients from Swindon have to travel to Oxford or to Bath to have their radiotherapy, and it is about 1,000 miles of traveling for these patients. So it was very close to his heart, and this paper was published in September, and we have a video that I'll show you in a second. So what we found is, on average, each UK patient would save 753 miles or 30 miles of travel and 215 kilograms of carbon dioxide. It is better seen in the video. So can you please play this? It's about 3 minutes. 2 minutes and a half. Sorry. This video. This was BMJ saying that you must produce a video abstract and submit it to them before it is published. So we took the opportunity to produce this. Well, we need to have sound as well. You don't have to listen to me, but at least by the time. How are we time? So that is UCL, you can see in the background. The red building is a cruciform building because it looks like a cross when you see it from the sky.
For 3 to 6 weeks, every day after the operation. For this, they have to go to the radiotherapy center in the hospital every working day. With the TARGIT IORT technique, this can all be done during the operation. In the TARGIT A trial, we randomly allocated 3,500 women to receive either TARGIT IORT during the operation or whole breast radiotherapy afterwards, over 3 to 6 weeks.
This is a unique study. It is the first to quantify the environmental impact of our patients travelling to receive radiotherapy. It was brought about through the collaboration of breast cancer specialists here at Swindon's Great Western Hospital, in London, in Harlow, and through the hard work of 2 sixth form students. After breast cancer surgery, I have to tell my patients that they need to go to Oxford or Bath every day for 3 or 4 weeks to receive their radiotherapy. I realised that while I'd be driving this only once or twice a month, most of my patients would be asked to drive this at least 3 or 4 weeks for their radiotherapy. What a horrible journey I thought they had to put up with.
In the TARGIT A trial, we found that patients with breast cancer who have a lumpectomy and targeted intraoperative radiotherapy during their lumpectomy procedure fared no worse than those who need to take the radiotherapy post-operatively for over 6 weeks. In this paper, we crunched the numbers.
There are only 62 radiotherapy centres in the UK, which means that most patients with breast cancer have to travel a long way to complete their breast cancer treatment. That includes those in district general hospitals such as Harlow and Swindon.
In this study, we looked carefully at patients treated in the UK as part of the TARGIT A trial. They were treated at University College London, in Royal Free, at Dundee, Winchester and Guy's Hospital. We also looked at patients treated in Swindon and Harlow. Both of these hospitals recently acquired the intraoperative radiotherapy device, and we looked at the number of lives that were saved by patients having their treatment in these hospitals.
Using patients' postcodes and the addresses of radiotherapy centres participating in the trial, we calculated the distance driven and journey times taken.
We used Google Maps to work this out, and we validated our results by doing several in-depth journeys to and from the radiotherapy centre. But we found that most patients, a typical breast cancer patient, would have to travel 753 miles over 30 hours, and that means that they would release 215 kilograms of carbon dioxide emissions.
And this doesn't take into account how much trouble the patient and the family have to undergo in order to take this radiation.
If intraoperative radiotherapy were available in the UK, we estimate that up to 20,000 patients per year would be suitable for this treatment. This equates to a reduction in miles travelled for radiotherapy in regional centres of between 6 million and 15 million miles, and the corresponding reduction in carbon dioxide emissions of between 1,700 tonnes and 4,300 tonnes each year.
In order to absorb the carbon dioxide would require a forest of up to 300 hectares. This forest would need to cover St James's Park, Hyde Park, Kensington Palace Gardens, Buckingham Palace Gardens and Green Park combined.
By using new techniques such as intraoperative radiotherapy, we can actually reduce our patients' carbon footprint. Perhaps the concept of therapy miles needs to be considered when we prescribe treatments for our patients.
These savings are also important in addition to saving to the NHS in terms of delivering the treatment.
Standing here in the beautiful French Alps reminds us all just how important the environment is. The so-called TARGIT treatment, which is a form of intraoperative radiotherapy, which we believe we have shown is just as effective for a selected group, quite a large group, and of course the advantages to the patient are very, very considerable. The new piece of work breaks new ground on the environmental front.
Thank you. So clearly we are fans of Star Wars and so may the force be with us. So TARGIT is cost saving. In addition to the beautiful presentation by Michael, we have a full chapter in this publication devoted to health economics in the UK, and there is a definite cost saving, and the final conclusion includes this because that is important for the Department of Health. The follow-up question has been asked many times, and we believe it is good enough because all difference in the radiotherapy effectiveness is in the first 5 years. So if you compare radiotherapy versus no radiotherapy, the separation of lines occurs mostly in the first 2 to 3 years, and if you look at the hazard plot, you can see almost all the difference is in the first 5 years. After 5 years, the effect of radiation on local control goes away. And you can see that very clearly when you plot the numbers. The hazards are mostly in the first 5 years. So whatever difference was going to be seen at 25 years is already seen at 5 years. Is the follow-up of the two trials similar? Because this is always said in many publications that, oh, Elliot had a 5-year follow-up, therefore they had a higher recurrence, and TARGET had only 2-year follow-up. So that's not the case, really, because TARGET A includes patients more than the Elliot trial, and we already have median follow-up of 5 years for the number of patients in the Elliot trial. And we have seen this publication in which the two trial are equal. Death is an important outcome, and it is really very, very important here. We didn't think so when we started. There were 88 deaths and 34 local recurrences, and we need to put that in perspective of what it was 30 years ago. 52 of these deaths were from other causes. Only 36 were from breast cancer. So, might TARGET save lives? So we know that there were fewer deaths with TARGET, and they were in the non-breast cancer mortality. We know they were from other cancers. And you're going to hear more about screening patients cohort in the TARGET A trial who were screen detected, about 2,000 patients, tomorrow when Professor Baum will talk about how this might be useful and interesting results there. So, is this mortality reduction plausible? What might be the cause? We know that traditional radiotherapy increases cancers of the lung and esophagus, which can be fatal. It's a real tragedy when these patients are already cured of their breast cancer. It can damage the heart as well. It leads to increase in lung and esophageal cancer, quite a large proportion. And we start seeing subclinical cardiac damage within 6 months of starting radiotherapy. Within 6 weeks of starting radiotherapy. And Sarah Darby's paper has clearly shown that cardiac toxicity becomes apparent early in the first 5 years. So it is consistent with what we have found. So having seen all this and having analyzed the TARGIT A data along with the Zecastro trial data, I thought we should analyze all trials of localized radiation compared with whole breast radiation. These had been done before. The meta-analysis was done, but they had concentrated only on doing local recurrences. They had reported a number of deaths, but had not given it importance at all. So when we did a meta-analysis and submitted it to the Red Journal, it did receive a lot of strong, very robust review, but it was finally accepted. And what we found is that when you give targeted radiation, that is localized to the tumor bed, there is lower non-breast cancer mortality. Breast cancer mortality is on the line, it is same as EBRT, and overall there is reduced overall mortality with targeted radiotherapy. So p-value of 0.05. So this difference what we saw in the targeted trial is probably real. With modern therapy, such patients which we treat, their mortality from breast cancer is less than 5%. And this is probably the reason why we are seeing this 1.5% difference in overall mortality that we could not have seen when 50% of patients were dying from breast cancer 50 years ago. So targeting radiotherapy to just the tumor bed reduces overall mortality by 1.3%. So what are the implications? If 20,000 patients are eligible, 1 to 2% difference would mean 200 to 400 fewer deaths per year by giving intraoperative radiation instead of external beam. So you have a treatment that actually causes, I don't like to say it in any other audience, 200 to 400 deaths per year in the UK. If this was a car, would it be allowed to sold on the roads? Would it not be recalled? The option of IORT should be offered to patients. This paper was actually one of the most read papers in the Red Journal. It remained on this list and remains on its second or third, and it remains on the Elsevier list as well. So that's an important result to take home. So Michael referred to the idea of giving no radiotherapy, and when you analyze patients in CLGD, BASO2, PRIME2, and TARGET A trial, you find that in these three trials, which compared patients with no radiotherapy, choosing patient to be of good prognosis, so they had older patients, as you can see, they had tumor sizes restricted to less than 2 centimeters, grade was restricted, nodes had to be negative, and ER had to be positive. We had no restriction on any of these, and despite that, the recurrence rate was 2.1 versus 1.1% during pre-pathology. If you restrict it to just giving ER positive status, then the recurrence rates were equal, 1.4 versus 1.1. And the recurrence rates was 1 in 25 if we don't give any radiotherapy, or 1 in 17, whereas it goes up to 1 in 71 if you give intraoperative radiation, giving a clinical reason in addition to economic one for patients to be given this. So when are patients old enough for the quit claim of local control? So there is seem to be a group of elderly patients who do not profit from radiotherapy. It's interesting that although we have a group of people who keep opposing intraoperative radiation, I have continued to receive invitations from them in good faith, and the chapter about intraoperative therapy does feature in this short course of radiotherapy. Of course, patient choice is important, because if we don't give patients a choice, up to 20% of patients can be non-compliant, and they may not take the radiotherapy. And those patients may do well, may not do well, but not necessarily, of course, because of not taking radiation. You can give patient choice by using pictograms such as these, and this is published in the Red Journal, where all the pink dots are women who are very well, and they seem to be similar in the two groups. The grey dots are people who have died, they seem to be slightly more with EBRT, and the orange dots are people who have recurred, which are slightly more with IORT. And the numbers are there at the bottom, and then patients can make a decision which way they want to go. So single dose, same anesthetic, 80% required for further radiation and better breast-related quality of life. And every patient here requires to travel 750 miles. And then you give a patient choice, and there has been a recommendation by the Royal College of Radiologists without a publication of the import low trial, that giving IMRT should be the standard of care or the braking therapy should be standard of care. When patients are told about this particular method, they should, I believe, be shown the whole picture. And that is the way multi-catheter implant brachytherapy is given, and that's a paper by Professor David Weiser. And we should show them a photograph of how IORT is given and let them choose. So, people have mentioned the Astro guidance notes, and there have been, since last year, in fact, at the last meeting, we sat here and devised that we should write a commentary to this. It has taken a year. That commentary has been published, led by Bill Small. It is, strangely, not published in the printed publication, although the guidelines were published. It is available online, but only to those who subscribe to the journal. So, when I requested them for ability to post it on the website, the Elsevier gave the permission, so you can access it by going to bit.ly/astro-appi. There you get the whole paper, so you can see the commentary, which is counterpoint to the guidance. I will finish in the last 2 minutes using Target Boost. Target Boost is for younger and higher risk patients who still have a higher risk of local recurrence. Even in the EORTC Boost trial, in centers of excellence, patients who are younger than 50 do suffer higher risk of local recurrence, 13%, 8.7%. Could Target improve local control? As a tumor bed boost, it might be superior because of immediacy and precision. The temporal miss, we always think about, radiation oncologists keep talking about spatial miss, geographical miss, but there is something called temporal miss. Is the timeliness of radiotherapy might be vital. You may have known this research before, is that this wound fluid, let's see if this works. Oh, sorry, say cancel. Say cancel. Can you click on cancel? Yeah. So when the cells in the top box move, they move much faster than the cells in the bottom box. You have to believe me. And the graph shows, say cancel. Cancel please. The graph shows the video microscopy speed that the motility is reduced after giving intraoperative radiotherapy. And this is probably explained by the difference in the composition of the wound fluid in patients who receive intraoperative radiation. And we have been having very interesting discussions of how this might be important to study in the future. But that is in the lab. What happens in real life in patients? And when we analyzed the first 300 patients treated with Target Boost from 1998 to 2005, they were a garden variety, anybody and everybody. So there were 20% patients who were more than 2 centimeters, 30% who were grade 3, and 30% were node positive. So their local recurrence rate was half the expected local recurrence rate at 1.73%. And this, I'm glad to see the data from the Cleveland Clinic Target R trial, in which they had a local recurrence of 0.9% in those who received Target plus EBRT, which is exactly the same as in the Target A trial, the 250 patients who received Target plus EBRT, and it is there in the Lancet in the supplement where the recurrence rate is 0.9% in those who receive both treatments. So we have reason to believe that giving Target and EBRT is likely to have better local control. So Target B trial is to test whether giving an intraoperative boost is superior in controlling cancer locally in the breast, and we want to randomize 1,700 patients to see if it is superior. But it may have yet another value. The mortality difference seen in the Target A trial was analyzed further in this manner. Now I'll go through this graph carefully. So if you see patients who received intraoperative radiation during the lumpectomy procedure, about 20% of them required further radiotherapy. Now if you look at the two groups of patients who received EBRT, they are in red. Both those groups of patients received EBRT. One group had already received Target. So if both groups received EBRT, they should not be different in terms of their non-breast cancer mortality. The group on top received EBRT because they had a higher risk breast cancer, not because of any other non-breast cancer causes. At worst, they might be worse in terms of their other health parameters because they have bad breast cancer. But they are not likely to be better in terms of their cardiac mortality and other cancer mortality. So, in this paper, these two non-randomized group of patients are being compared, target plus EBRT versus EBRT. So if both groups receive EBRT, any difference in non-breast cancer mortality should be logically attributable to the giving of intraoperative radiotherapy. And this was analyzed in 2012 and has been published, and is published in the HTA report. What do we find? You find no events in the 218 patients in pre-pathology who received both treatments, and 24 events in the pre-pathology group who were randomized to receive EBRT. The numbers of denominator are higher, but the difference is statistically significant. Of course, this is a non-randomized comparison, suggesting that what is the difference between these two? It's target. Is target doing something good that within the next 5 years protects the patient against heart attacks and other cancer deaths? It's such a far-fetched hypothesis. But if it is true, and there may be a biological basis for it because of the wound fluid effect, then we need to test it. In order to test it, we can test it in the TARGIT A trial, and we published this in the New England Journal actually. We said that this is what happens. It is a letter soon after the Darby paper. Now these data also are supported by the paper by Hans Christian Koberg from Germany, in which he has published a case control study of neoadjuvant therapy given during lumpectomy procedure. 116 patients, 61 versus 55. Half of them had received external intraoperative radiotherapy. What was found is that local recurrence is no different, but overall survival was significantly better if they received intraoperative radiation. It's interesting, this is completely non-randomized. The patients were matched, but there was a better survival. Maybe there is something in it. So, how do we test it? In target B, half the patients are going to get target boost, half are not going to get target boost. Everybody is going to get EBRT. We are collecting already very detailed data on their cardiac and other cancer morbidities, and so we will test whether this actually improves non-breast cancer mortality, in addition to improving local control. And translational research to investigate the mechanism is what we really want to do. Eligibility is straightforward. Those who are not suitable for target A are suitable for target B. We already have many centers in the US participating, so if you can please come in touch with me to take part in target B trial, that will be really welcome. Target B is open to recruitment. 23 centers are already initiated. Over 350 patients are already randomized. Our ultimate goal is 1,796 patients. We are well within our goal in the randomization. So the hope is that every patient who has a lumpectomy could receive intraoperative radiation and receive the external beam in case they have a higher risk. So that's the ultimate vision. Thank you very much. Yeah, questions? Can Michael and Stephanie?
Yeah.
Questions, please.
Yeah. Just really quickly, in the Target B trial, are you controlling for left-sided disease and cardiac protective measures such as respiratory gating, deep inspiration, breath hold, or prone positioning for the external beam radiation?
There is no specific control for it, but the randomization is stratified according to the center. So each center will have patients, a separate table for each center. So if they're using a different technique, and we gather the data of what type of technique they're using for external beam radiotherapy, so we will be able to analyze that when we have the final analysis. Yeah. And the respiratory gating, prone position, all is being taken up now in this year and the last year, and we initiated a trial, it was in 2012. Questions, Dennis? Yes.
Okay. I have a question for each of you. Starting with Dr. Alvarado. One of the advantages of IRT is that you can achieve 100% compliance with radiotherapy since it's given administration. The Shaw paper did not discuss the impact of non-compliance for whole breast radiotherapy patients, as far as I understand. What is your analysis of that study in terms of the impact of non-compliance with whole breast radiotherapy for patients receiving breast radiotherapy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could add that into the Markov model, obviously, under the strategies and look at probabilities. So we hadn't, but that's a great idea. I mean, we can do that. One of the residents was going to look at that with the elderly population as well. But you could add that into the Markov model on the side where the strategy is whole breast radiation, and instead of 100% going on to whole breast radiation and then following the health states, you could set it up to be, you could run a sensitivity analysis on it and show that if 10% were not compliant, what then the increased risk of local recurrence, or if 20% were not compliant or such. So you could definitely add that in, and it would only obviously benefit even more so the cost effectiveness of the IRT.
Yeah, I think their assumption was that every patient designated for whole breast radiotherapy actually achieved it. But that's not necessarily true based upon what you.
That's true. 21%. That is paper has come up after that. So isn't it? Indeed. Yeah, very good idea.
Stephanie, I think I focused mostly on patients treated with for invasive ductal carcinoma, but what can you say about patients treated with IRT for diagnosis of recess or invasive ductal carcinoma? How was that addressed in the registry?
They're actually all lumped in together. We haven't looked at them separately, but that's a good idea.
Do you have a sense of what the recurrence rate was for those subgroups?
I don't. I think in the paper there was one recurrence for DCIS. I have to look at it, but I actually don't.
They were not outliers, so they seem to be similar to the recurrence rate for the overall group of invasive ductal cancer patients.
Actually, yeah, similar to what you've reported on both.
Yeah, in the TARGIT A trial, there were 60 patients, I think, who had lobular cancers, and not all of them received external beam, less than half. And none of the recurrences were among the lobular cancers anyway. So, well, that's too small a number, but that's the way it is here.
Although you say that's too small a number, if you look at the American Society for Brachytherapy paper that was published not too long ago from some of the people that were mentioned, they actually comment that the data for lobular, there's no data that shows that partial breast is worse for IRT, therefore it should be acceptable, even though the numbers were, I think, and Dr. Chen would know, 23, I think, at William Beaumont previously. So if we want to follow the expertise of those such people, we could work that way as well.
Dr. Lee, what can you say about the use of IRT for HER2-positive patients?
We didn't find any evidence of HER2 positivity on outcome at all. And I would say logically, patients who are HER2 positive today mostly receive chemotherapy and Herceptin. So they are sort of rendered HER2 negative in that way. And perhaps giving localized radiation at the time of lumpectomy from the translational research paper, it is likely to be more effective if they are HER2 positive. So there is really no reason. In fact, when you look at the subgroup analysis, younger patients seem to be doing better, grade 3 seem to be doing better. None of the trends are significant, but it is reverse of what we think it is.
But Dr. Harris had maybe presented, hadn't you published a paper looking at HER2 positive local recurrence, showing that there was no increase, I think, at one point, maybe from Penn or Fox Chase or something?
Yeah, our paper from Penn is quite old, so I'm not sure that would be the most contemporary data, although I can comment that there are some series looking at the impact of local recurrence before the era of anti-HER2 therapy and after MD Anderson has a big series. It's retrospective, but their data suggests that when you add in the anti-HER2 therapies, the local recurrence rate, and this is not with partial breast radiation, it's with whole breast radiation or even after mastectomy with or without radiation, but the increased risk of local recurrence washes out of the equation when the patient's getting anti-HER2 therapy. And in their series, that was actually only trastuzumab, so now there's lots of dual and even, you know, other alternatives. So that seems to be the case, at least from sort of the whole breast radiation data.
In fact, I remember the data from Hans Christian Coburg. There has been analysis of HER2 and there is no difference.
A question for Michael. In your cost analysis, did you include, I think you did, but I can't remember, OR time, and what amount of time did you include, if you included it?
So we did not include the OR time, and I know that was mentioned in the other paper. And the reason that we didn't is that when you look back at all cost-effective analysis that show different techniques in the OR adding, there's rarely, if any, ever comment on the OR time. Because in theory, and I didn't really go into the costs that we use, but you know, the model uses Medicare reimbursements, which are based on CPT codes, based on, you know, expected, you know, work-related activity, and that should everything should be, you know, that should all be covered with regards to that. And so, you know, we did not comment on that in our paper because we felt it starts to get kind of gray and kind of wishy-washy with that, because then you could say, well, if you're increasing the OR time, that's a cost, but this patient doesn't have to go to the radiation suite every day for 6 weeks, so what's the cost savings for opening up that to a whole other patient? So it kind of gets and they do mention that in their paper, but we decided not to look at that. And the other thing that's come up before is this concept of, you know, capital cost up front to purchase the machine. We didn't initially include that in our first paper, and that was a commentary that we had to address in our discussion, saying that there are capital investments. But again, with all cost-effectiveness analysis that undergo HDR brachytherapy, for example, there's never ever any mention of having to purchase the HDR machine, which is about double what at the time when we bought our machine. And then if you look at cost-effective analysis of utilizing the robot for prostatectomy or colon surgery, they never talk about the cost of there as well. So we didn't add any capital expenses as well.
Yeah, these cost analysis, I mean, it's very challenging because, I mean, maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow in one of the sessions in terms of, you know, when you put together a business plan for having IORT, you know, all these things kind of get into the mix. And depending on which hat you wear, either looks really great or not so great. But can we get from the professor a quote about the cost of the carbon footprint? Because maybe we can factor that into the business plan for the cost analysis.
Well, it sounds like we've got like an air circulator going on here the whole time anyway. I think we're cleaning out all the cigarettes too. But I think those are all really, really important concepts. And you're right, there's cost effectiveness, which is cost saving for societies, which is much different than the business model, unfortunately, of medicine in the United States, where, you know, you first talk to someone, it's like, oh, well, wait a second, we're going to get reimbursed less. Why would we ever do this? And then you catch them because that's what's right and that's what's important. But you're right, it is a big difference when, you know, the different people are looking at it. But you know, way back, Professor Baum and Jay and we went to Washington D.C. and we met with all sorts of people and talked about this, and it's still to this day flabbergasted that insurance are not willing to cover it when they see this data. But like I said, they're willing to, you know, pay $150,000 for a new monoclonal antibody that might add, you know, 3 months to survive.
The time taken during the IORT, when we do intraoperative assessment of the sentinel node, it almost overlaps. So if you're going to wait for it, do the sentinel node, set it off, do the lumpectomy, IORT, by the time you get sentinel node. So sort of.
Well, it's good, but you know, most of us don't do that anymore, right? We don't do intraoperative evaluation of sentinel nodes. So C11 data, you know, just those.
Jay, I enjoyed both your presentations. I'd like to challenge you a little bit on this, your observations about multicentricity. Are your observations, do you think, we treat one of the tumors in the breast, we know there's many. Do you think there's fundamental differences in the biology of the tumor we're treating and the other tumors, or is there a bystander or a side effect of the IORT treatment which is leading to suppression of the other tumors that appear not to be clinically relevant?
It may well be bystander effect. I would love to believe that. But patients who receive no radiotherapy versus patients who receive radiotherapy, recurrences still occur around the tumor site. That is what the data had shown previously. So even in those patients who did not receive any radiotherapy, it may well be because of the stimulatory effect of the wound. There's also the cells immediately surrounding the cancer have maybe morphologically normal breast cancer cells, breast epithelial cells, but they already have mutations in the chromosomes which are on one step behind being a cancer cell, and they are around the tumor bed. Also, there has been some analysis of the amount of aromatase in the breast tissue immediately surrounding the tumor compared to the rest of the breast, and there seems to be higher concentration around the tumor. But I don't know why some cancers will grow and some don't. What we are finding today is with increasing more and more sensitive mammograms and use of MRI, which has become widespread, we are finding more than one cancers, and they say, oh, good, we found it and good, we treated it. And sometimes we start doing mastectomies in them, and because of fear, we contralateral mastectomy. So it's not easy not to do them.
I'd also like to ask one other thing about the wound fluid studies. They're very intriguing. Is there a next generation of study? We have a very motivated group here.
Yes.
All committed to sort of taking this, continuing to take this to the base studies. Is there another generation of biologic studies that we need samples for that this group could contribute to?
I think yes. It's in the planning, so everybody can participate from the beginning. We have had protocols written, and we were talking this morning, and we are key. So all patients in Target B could take part. Patients who are not having Target A, Target R could participate, taking wound fluids or taking plasma, deciding what to use, what markers to use, and collaborating with Aviano would be very useful. And fluid are being collected in Mannheim, they've been collected in Australia, but we have not yet analyzed all of it. And it is something very interesting to do, and we would be good if all of us collaborate on that. Thank you.
Yes, in the Target B trial, do the patients receive the whole breast irradiation right after the surgery?
Not necessarily. Many of them receive chemotherapy because they are high risk.
So
they receive it as usual afterwards.
Okay, so the trial does allow for surgery, then chemo, and then radiation?
Indeed.
Okay.
So there is also, therefore, when you do the final analysis, there will be a difference not only in the timing of boost, also the wave is given, because the external beam boost is given after chemotherapy, if chemotherapy is given. The one thing that Professor Wenz has found is that if you have a tumor bed boost being given, if it is done within 4 weeks of the primary surgery, there appears to be a higher risk of fibrosis, which comes down sharply if it's given after 4 weeks, after surgery. So that is what we would advise, even if you're not getting chemotherapy.
Thank you.
Do you have feelings about additional levels of breast screening, such as MRI and partial breast intraoperative stuff?
Yeah, now, what happens is, in real life, when hospitals are starting to use intraoperative radiation, for example, private hospitals in London, which are influenced greatly by what happens across the pond, people say, well, you must do MRI before you do intraoperative radiation. That is in one hospital. The second hospital has taken a pragmatic view that it is not necessary unless it is indicated because of increased mammographic breast density. In the Target A trial, only 6.5% patients had, or 6% patients had MRI. And the results we found were despite MRI not finding the other cancers. So it is not necessary to do an MRI for a patient in order to receive partial breast radiation. That is the randomized evidence.
Unless there's breast density that's higher.
Yeah, but please.
Or never.
But no, I'm not saying never. 6%. That's not the number that get MRIs nowadays. Nowadays it is much more than that. So
96%, unfortunately.
Questions? I think we have.
So we'll be back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.